Hi, I'm Colleen.
And I'm Kathleen, and we're career coaches at Beam Stanford Career Education.
We created this video to walk you through 4 easy steps you can take to tailor your resume for a specific job. But first, what's the point of a resume? To get an interview. You need to connect your background to the needs of the employer in order to convince them to interview you.
To demonstrate how to do this, we'll use a real Stanford student's resume to walk you through the 4 steps. Meet Jane. We first met Jane as an STS major who wanted to apply to a legal research and policy job. This is the resume she brought to her career coaching appointment at Beam before she applied the 4 steps in this video. We'll come back to this resume to show you how Jane tailored her resume for the legal and research policy job using the 4 steps. So what are the steps?
First, decide on your message or story. Second, organize your content under descriptive headers. Third, describe each experience in a way that demonstrates why you are a strong candidate for the job. And finally, fourth, format your document to help the content stand out so you get that interview.
As we go through the steps, feel free to pull up your most recent copy of your resume so you can work on it. Okay, let's look in depth at each of these 4 steps.
First step, decide on your message, story, or narrative. What do you want the employer to know about you? Often when students need to write a resume, the first thing they do is look for examples.
Exactly. They look at friends' resumes, samples online, and resume templates, and try to create something similar.
And that's an okay way to start a resume, but the way we recommend, before you write anything, is to first decide what you want the employer to understand about you, your experience, and your skills. And to do that, you need to understand what the employer is looking for.
You can find out what an employer is looking for by reading the job description, talking with alum in the field, or with recruiters at a career fair or networking event. You can also follow posts about an employer on LinkedIn or Twitter. By talking to people and reading about the company, the role, responsibilities, and the qualifications, you'll start to understand the audience you are writing for with your resume.
Let's look at the job description for the legal research and program associate position Jane wanted to apply for. In the first paragraph, you'll see that the employer is a nonpartisan law and policy institute that conducts research, crafts policies, and engages in advocacy. Under responsibilities, we can learn that the person in this position will be asked to conduct legal research and data analysis, manage various projects, draft and edit publications and other forms of communication, organize and implement events, and work closely with attorneys and other stakeholders. Under qualifications, we see the person who would be successful in this position has a bachelor's degree, strong writing skills, as well as analytic, strategic, research, and organizational skills, and is able to collaborate with a team under tight deadlines. Once you have a clear understanding of what the employer is looking for in an applicant, take a look at your resume and decide what you have listed that is most relevant and transferable to this specific job.
If we look at Jane's before resume, we see that she studied STS with a focus on data and law, and she did an honors thesis on a relevant topic. In her experience section, we see that Jane worked in the tech industry at Google, which at first may not seem particularly relevant to the legal research and policy field. However, the skills she used to accomplish her work are highly relevant and transferable to this job. For example, she demonstrated analytical and problem-solving skills, creativity, good communication, judgment, and decision-making, and an ability to work effectively on multiple teams across functions. Skills that are mentioned throughout the job description. Later, we'll show you how she describes her experience to highlight these transferable skills. We also see that she worked in legal research, developing skills in research, data analysis, and writing. And she engaged in advocacy work, both at a legal service clinic and in leadership roles on campus. These are all experiences the employer would be interested in. The sum of these relevant experiences is your message or story. It's what you want the employer to know about you. So how do you organize this information to make sure your story is clear?
Well, that brings us to step number 2. You communicate your story by organizing your experience under descriptive section headers. The words you choose to use in your headers should highlight your relevant experience or skills to clearly communicate your story. If we look at Jane's before resume, we see that she uses very general headers: education, work experience, activities, and additional information. We see this often when we're doing resume reviews with students. But Jane has an opportunity to organize her content in a way that makes it stand out so the employer can quickly see why Jane is a good fit for this role by organizing her experiences instead under descriptive headers based on the role, industry, or skills desired.
Now, let's look at Jane's tailored resume after she met with us and applied the steps in this video. As you can see, Jane uses descriptive headers to reorganize her various experiences and make the argument about why she's a great match for the job, such as education, legal research and advocacy, project management, leadership, skills, and interests. By just glancing at her section headers, the employer can see clearly and quickly that Jane is a strong candidate for this position. So when you can, choose descriptive headers to organize your experience and clearly communicate to the employer about why you're qualified. Here are just a few examples of descriptive headers we see on tailored resumes.
Now it's your turn. Hit the pause button, take a quick look at the sample list of headers, and choose 3 to 5 relevant section headers for your resume. If you find that your experiences do not organize neatly into descriptive headers, you can use general headers, but be sure to highlight relevant aspects of your experience in your descriptions. Which brings us to step number 3. Step number 3 is describing each experience in a way that demonstrates why you're a strong candidate for the job. Students always have questions about what and how much information to share about an experience in a bullet point. When you're writing your descriptions, we suggest using the CAR framework to describe your experiences. CAR is an acronym. The C stands for context, which includes your role, the setting you worked in, and who you served or worked with on a team. The A stands for actions, which focuses on what you did and how you did it. And the R stands for results. Let the reader know the impact, scope, and result of your work. Use numbers to quantify. How much, how many, how often. If you don't know the numbers, you can also share your intended impact or goal.
Let's look at how Jane describes her experience at Google using the CAR framework. We'll highlight the text in different colors showing when Jane touched on context, actions, and results in her description. In green, you see the context Jane operated in. She worked as a bold intern for Google within the online partnership group. Because Google is so well known, she doesn't have to describe what the organization is in her description. If, however, Google was less well known, she might add a phrase within the first bullet, such as, for a multinational search engine company, to describe the setting she operated in. She also tells us who she worked with: 15 product experts and account managers on 6 teams across 3 continents to identify problems. And she collaborated across 3 teams to work towards a solution. In blue, she mentions what she did and how she did it. She identified and addressed issues with video ad technology by conducting interviews with multiple people across teams. She also collaborated with colleagues to determine actionable and scalable solutions and implemented those solutions. The results are in purple. As you can see, Jane was able to accurately identify existing problems with the technology as a result of all her actions, and her efforts were projected to increase annual revenue by 10%. Here, Jane clearly and concisely covers the context, the actions she took, and the results in her description. And you'll see, the descriptions aren't long. Usually the text will take 1 to 4 bullets for each experience.
One last but important thing to note about your descriptive bullet points. Each bullet point begins with a strong action verb. We recommend that you take the time to review the job posting again and highlight the verbs they are using to describe what they are looking for in the role and candidate. Once you've made a list of the verbs the employer is using, try to incorporate as many as you can into your own descriptions.
The final step, step number 4, isn't about content, but delivery. Formatting your document to help the content stand out. This is Jane's before resume.
And this is Jane's tailored resume after she applied the 4 steps. Easier to read, right? In general, as a bachelor or master's student, your resume will be 1 page. If you're having trouble fitting on a 1 page, review your content and ask yourself the 3 R's. Is this experience relevant? Is it repetitive? Or is this experience really old? Then adjust accordingly. If you're still stuck, here's some formatting tips. Your font should be easy to read. Jane used Calibri. Fonts such as Calibri, Arial, and Times New Roman work nicely. Use 10 to 12 font size, but try not to go below 10 points because it can be hard on the reader's eyes. And we want this to be easy to read. Your margins can be anywhere from 0.5 to 1 inch around the page, but don't go below 0.5 inch because it might not print or show. Lastly, selectively bold, capitalize, indent, and or bullet point any content you would like the reader to notice immediately so that it stands out. For example, the title you held or the name of an organization if it is highly relevant to the role or industry you're applying for. After Stanford, you will continue to gain experience, and your resume may grow longer. But these 4 steps apply to any resume you write in the future to get an employer's attention. And ultimately, get that interview and get that job.
For additional resources on resumes, including resume examples, tips, and handouts, visit our website.
Thanks for watching.